I'm here in the 2019 Nissan Altima. Now, 2019 is a big year for the Altima. This is the introduction of the 6th generation Altima, and it gets a full redesign for 2019. And the changes are very extensive. They cover everything from the exterior styling to 2 new powertrains under the hood and upgrades to safety technology, as well as interior multimedia and infotainment. So let's dive right in. We have a lot to cover, starting with the exterior styling. Now, up front, you get the V-Motion grille, which you'll kind of recognize from other vehicles in the Nissan lineup, but Nissan says that the new engine is actually a bit smaller, so they're able to drop the cowl of the hood. And what that means is the front of the car sits lower than ever before. And what that does is it makes the new Altima seem sleeker. It makes it seem lower and wider. And those other changes are also reflected in the new styling. So they shrunk the rear fenders down. They didn't make them quite as bulbous, and you have this nice shoulder line that runs kind of from the hood all the way to the back and integrates nicely into the taillights. Overall, it still looks like an Altima. The shape is still, recognizable as an Altima, but everything is a bit sleeker, a bit more toned, and it looks a bit more modern. I actually like the design changes quite a bit. For 2019, there are also big changes under the hood for the Altima. So that includes 2 new engines, starting with the base engine, which is still a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. However, Nissan says it has over 80% new parts, and it also gets a slight power increase from 179 to 188 horsepower. However, the bigger changes come with the optional engine. So instead of a V6, there's now an available turbocharged 2 liter 4-cylinder variable compression engine. And if that sounds familiar, that's because this engine was introduced earlier this year by Infiniti into the QX50 SUV. Now, Nissan engineers say that they've had to kind of change the orientation of the engine and retune it a bit to get it to fit into the Altima. And ultimately, I actually like the engine in this application much better than I do in the QX50. The QX50 is a larger vehicle, so it felt like the engine kind of had to spool up more to really get the QX50 going. Here, the engine has a bit easier time with the power, and since the Altima is a smaller vehicle, acceleration seems to pour on a little bit quicker. Now, if there's a caveat with both powertrains, is that it comes attached to a CVT, and it's more apparent in the base engine. The CVT kind of mutes throttle inputs, especially from a launch and when trying to pass. There's a noticeable lag where the transmission tries to step down when you're passing someone, and there's also a bit of a delay when you really try to accelerate hard from a stop. So while the measurable numbers on the engine aren't bad, their 188 horsepower is nothing to kind of sneeze at. The fact that the transmission kind of dulls your throttle inputs just makes the car feel slower and feel less responsive. Now, on the VC Turbo, I had a chance to test out the SR trim, which is the sporty trim of the Altima, and that does come with paddle shifters, and Nissan says that there are 8 available kind of fake gear ratios that you can flip through using those paddle shifters, and that kind of saves the SR. But the SR is the only trim that will offer those. So even if you get something like the car that we're in now, which is a platinum trim level, and you get the VC Turbo engine, you're not going to have the luxury of paddle shifters to really make that engine act as it should. The final powertrain change for 2019 for the Altima is the addition of all-wheel drive. Now, all-wheel drive gives the Altima a bit more differentiation between it and competitors like the Honda Accord and the Toyota Camry. It's going to be the only one out of those 3 to offer all-wheel drive. But the catch is you can only get all-wheel drive in the Altima with the base engine. Now, it will be available on all trim levels of the Altima, which is a good thing, and it's going to be a $1,350 option. But again, only with the base engine. So for those who want the optional VC Turbo engine, you're only going to be able to get that in front-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive system is kind of a more passive system, so it's similar to the one that you'll find underneath the Rogue and the Murano. It's able to send about 50% of available torque to the rear wheels, and once it's back there, it has a brake-based kind of torque vectoring system, which brakes one of the wheels to allow more power to go to the other wheel. And on the whole, it's not a very intrusive system. I drove an all-wheel drive version of the Altima on some canyon roads this morning, and functionally, it still pretty much feels like a front-wheel drive car. It has a front-wheel drive bias for greater efficiency, but the addition of all-wheel drive will be a welcome change for those who live in colder climates. Now, there are also big changes to safety features for 2019. The Altima gets an electric power steering system, which means that it's now available with their excellent ProPilot assist system. Now, ProPilot is one of my favorite sort of not quite self-driving features, but we'll call it driver aid features. It does a very good job with lane centering, which is not something you can say about other systems. And the adaptive cruise control is pretty smooth. It accelerates smoothly and slows down smoothly. It's just a very seamless integration. So on SV trim and above, you get the Pro Pilot Assist, and you also get what Nissan is calling Safety Shield 360. And that's just kind of a suite of safety technologies that includes one more new technology, which is rear automatic braking. So we got to see a demonstration of that. The system can actually detect stationary objects behind you, and if you're going to back into them, it will apply the brakes for you. Now, down at the very bottom, the S level does still get automatic forward emergency braking standard, and if you jump up to the SR, that adds blind spot warning with rear cross traffic alert. So even the bottom trim levels aren't, left without any safety features, but you won't be able to go back and add in Pro Pilot or Safety Shield 360 to those. There are not really any option packages offered on the Altima anymore, so kind of what you get safety-wise for that grade is what you're stuck with. The 2019 Altima also sees big updates on the interior, but the most welcome ones are changes to the multimedia system. So there is now a new 8-inch touchscreen, and that's standard across all trim levels. And it's sort of mounted high up on the dash in this modern kind of tablet style, but Nissan did one thing that I appreciate ergonomically with the screen, and they made it easy to reach from the driver's seat. So some of these screens get mounted up too high where you can't really reach them without leaning very far forward, but this one I can reach both sides of the screen as well as both the volume and tuning knobs without leaning too far forward. So kudos to Nissan for that ergonomic help there. The other big addition for 2019 is standard Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So whether you have an iPhone or an Android phone, you're going to be covered for smartphone mirroring technology. Now, overall, the updates to the 2019 Altima are all very welcome changes. I just wish that Nissan had gone a little bit further in one area, and that would be in improving the Altima's dynamics. So I had a chance to test the SR version of the Altima, which is their sporty version, and that has about 10% stiffer dampers in the suspension, and Nissan says it also has a much tighter steering rack, so you get a bit more confidence, a bit more weight in the steering. Now, I wish that Nissan had applied those changes across all of the trim levels of the Altima. Even though the SR had a stiffer suspension, it still rode pretty well, and the added weight gives the steering more confidence. The other trim levels feel a bit floaty on the road. You can't really tell what the wheels are doing underneath you. So I think that those changes to the SR could have been applied up and down the lineup, and then you could have made the SR still even sportier. And that would have helped the Altima compete against the Accord and the Camry, both of which got very extensive redesigns last year, and both of which I would say are a bit dynamically better than the Altima. It was always going to be an uphill battle for the Altima going up against those two, and I'm not sure that Nissan did quite enough driving wise to give the Altima a leg up on those two vehicles. However, it still does offer all-wheel drive, and that's an important bit of differentiation, because if you want a mid-size sedan with all-wheel drive, you're basically looking at the Altima or the Subaru Legacy, and the Altima is better than the Subaru Legacy in a bunch of different ways. It has a better interior, I'd say it has a better multimedia experience now, and the safety features on the Nissan, they are seamless in a way that the Subaru can't really match. The Altima will be heading to dealerships in a few weeks, starting in early October. And if you want more information on the Altima, including detailed breakdowns of the pricing and the fuel economy, head over to Cars.com.